how did it feel when you actually got on the court and just got to start playing basketball and you and LeBron are throwing alley-oops? How did you process the whole thing?
What's up, guys? Nathan Bunnett, episode 74. I got my man Swiss Eel here, another Spurs fan, and we have a lot to talk about. Usually, Swiss Eel is on every now and then, especially around March Madness, because he's like my expert on college basketball. Even though he claims that he's not the expert, but he's
No, I'm
better than
not.
he's better than a lot of people I know at college basketball. So I always call him my college basketball expert. But we got a lot of things to get through because this is the trade deadline episode. But beforehand, I do have a bit of announcements. So, as I've said in a few videos, we are trying to hit 25K subs for 2025, hashtag 25 for 25. So if you do end up liking this podcast episode that we're about to get into, please hit the subscribe button, like the video around, share it around, all that good stuff. I am also working on an indie game that many of you may not know about. I've mentioned it a few times on the channel. Trailer is up on the channel, which I'll link in the description. But we also have a Kickstarter going for the indie game so that we can get it produced. So if you are watching this and if you are into video games, things like that, and you want to see what I'm working on, you can check out the trailer and please help the Kickstarter out, all that good stuff. I'm working on something to show off gameplay wise. If I am able to finish some sort of gameplay demo by the time this episode comes out, I'll attach it to the end of this episode or link it in the description. But in regards to this channel with Nathan Bunnett, also another announcement that I have not really made fully public yet, but shared with a few people that are close to me. I am working on a merch store. It is in progress. So I'm working on the designs. I got to figure out what designs I'm going to do besides just the Nathan Bunnett logo. I also got to get all the actual paperwork behind that because in order to sell merch to you guys, I got to have an online tax ID. I got to have, make sure the IRS doesn't come after me if I start selling you guys some shirts. So I got to make sure all the paperwork's taken care of. Then I got to get the designs. But we do already have a domain link. So you guys, it will be linked in the description. You can check out the website, but there is nothing currently on the website. It literally, if you go to the website, it's just the Nathan Bunnett logo and it says under construction. So, but you guys can check it out. It's nathanbutt.net, which I thought was pretty clever. So, yeah, you guys can check it out. But, yeah. We're gonna go ahead and get into it. Is there anything you wanted to say before we immediately jump into this, Swiss Eel? Because this has been eventful to say the least.
Mostly just like, thank God this is over because I can finally sleep this weekend. I swear they were dropping the craziest news late in the night. I'm like, I got work tomorrow morning. Don't do this to me.
Yeah, dude, it was funny because like I saw a TikTok that was kind of talking about the Luka trade and how they dropped it, and it was like the caption said like NBA fans at midnight, and it was this guy like scrolling on his phone, and like the other guy in the TikTok was the personified version of the NBA. Like he had like a name tag on that said NBA, and so like this guy's scrolling on his phone, and then NBA walks past him, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, NBA?" And NBA is like, "Nothing much. By the way, Luka just went to the Lakers." And the guy scrolling on his phone is like, "Oh, okay." Wait, what? Like, because it happened at midnight and everybody had to process in the morning. And I had a similar reaction. I was talking to my girlfriend about it. Like, she had people staying over, and because of that, like, we were all staying up and everything. And I remember like scrolling on my phone and seeing that like Luka got traded, but I didn't want to freak out because like then I would have to like explain why I was freaking out. So I just like held it in, and then in the morning I like told my girlfriend, I was like, "Okay, so the craziest thing just happened last night while I was on my phone in front of y'all."
Well, and that's like, so I was freaking out. Then, my girlfriend, she keeps up with stuff for me, and she's like, wait, and we're going through it. And she was like, I don't do the best with names. But then, they flashed the picture on the TV. She was like, oh shit, I know who that guy is. They traded that guy. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is big.
what I love is all the TikToks of like the guys like explaining it to like their girlfriends and like different terms and stuff like that. I saw one where it said it's like trading prime like 2012 Taylor Swift for 2020 Britney Spears or something. And I was like, I've seen plenty of those where somebody like had another one where it was like we traded a Porsche for like a decent Dodge Challenger or something like that, where it was like it's still okay because we still got ID, but we still got AD, but it's not what we wanted. And
Yeah,
just all
I
the
will say
comparisons.
there's one thing I'll say. I feel so bad for Anthony Davis,
Mhm.
because like Anthony Davis is a really, really good player.
Mhm.
And any other trade where you're getting Anthony Davis back, people were like, hell yeah, we got AD. Let's
Mhm.
go. Except
Exactly.
this one. I'm like, man, I wonder how it's gonna go. They said they got like security details around Nico
Yeah, I was
Harrison
gonna talk
tonight.
about that. Like they hired security, and then I saw somebody commented. And by the way, if I'm on my phone this episode, it's because I want to make sure I get all the trade details right, and also I want to look at the funny comparisons for this. So, I have one I'll say in a second, but they were talking about the security. Yeah, I saw on Twitter, and the game is tomorrow, so we haven't seen yet what like all the craziness will be with the new security. But I saw somebody commented on like the NBA Central um tweet that said like he had improved security, and somebody said like anything can be sneaked into the stadiums if it's small enough, and they were saying they used the example of when LeBron returned to Cleveland after going to Miami, everybody snuck batteries in because they want to be detected, and then they started throwing batteries at people. And so it's like, so now imagine what's going to happen in Dallas, and we'll
Oh yeah.
end up seeing that tomorrow from when this is recorded. Um, this episode will come out. Today's the 7th, which means yesterday's Thursday was the 6th. So this will come out on the 13th, right before Valentine's Day. But we are recording this on the 7th. So this is the day right after trade deadline. So any speculation about like how certain players will perform and things like that, whenever this comes out, we've seen a few games of the players playing on that team. But as of right now, this is like our expectations of what the trades will look like and everything, because this is like the day after the trade deadline, like right after. But
Yeah, it's one of the things like for the Mavs. I mean, I feel like the
mhm,
Mavs are going to be good. I mean, they still got Kyrie Irving. Yeah, they still got their big guys. I mean, Max Christie looked good in his debut. Yeah, I mean, he didn't look like a promising young guy anymore. He looked like an actual good player, and we'll see if that keeps up. And
mhm,
yeah, they've still got their solid team. I don't understand the move, but it's like, okay, yeah, they're gonna
mhm,
be good. But man, I'll tell you, if I'm any kind of coach or owner and I see an interview like that where my GM says to him, the future means the next 2 to 3 years, that's not something I want to
mhm,
hear. Like, it's more than just the next 2 3 years for your job. You have to think ahead. And yeah, it's different when you're a contending team, but I don't, man, I don't
mhm,
get that trade. And meanwhile, LA, I think, got set up for, the next few years. They don't really have any picks to throw around to trade or draft anybody, but who cares? Now you got
mhm.
Luka and La La Land. Like, all you got to do is throw that out there, and there's going to be guys trying to get there left and right to play with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a trade, man! I never seen anything like that in my life.
I just love again like all the memes that come out of it. I wanted to share two memes with you, and then I'll talk about the actual like team chemistry and like basketball side of it. But I was texting in a group chat with my girlfriend and some of her friends about this because they know like that I do this like they know me pretty well through her, so they know I do this podcast and I'm a
Yeah,
big basketball guy. But they aren't into basketball, but they're pretty chill whenever like I nerd out about basketball because like they know that they're just like happy for me. You know what I mean? Like they're in the corner like I don't know what's going on, but good for you, man.
for success.
uh, but so I texted him and I said, I just saw a really good analogy for the Luka trade for you guys on TikTok, and I wanted to share it with you. And then I texted, it's like, and this is in quotes because it's from somebody off of TikTok, and it says, it's like the Mavericks bought a $400 coffee maker to bring to White Elephant, and then after everything happened, they ended up leaving with a $50 pair of Beats headphones. So it's like, it's still a $50 pair of Beats headphones, but you brought a $300 coffee maker into it to start with.
Yeah, I saw some lady on TikTok say like, somebody told me that the Luka Doncic trade is like if you traded Harry Styles for Kevin Jonas. That is absurd.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, yes, it is.
I just, dude, I saw some memes that were crazy out of pocket because of how disappointed Mavs fans were. I saw somebody say, okay, this may get, I'm saying this live, so this may get cut from the official YouTube episode I post if it's that bad. But I saw somebody say the JFK assassination is now the second worst thing to happen in Dallas. And I was like, bro.
Oh my god! But did you see? I think it was Tim McMahon that wrote the article. Did you read that article?
No, I've just been keeping up with like, because that's the thing is like this trade deadline's so crazy that we don't even have time to process one trade before another one happens. But
Dude, I came away from reading that just feeling awful for Luca.
mm-hmm,
I mean, he said in there that Nico Harrison specifically didn't go to any other team because he didn't want Luca and his camp to find out.
mm-hmm,
I'm like, come on, man, this is your guy, and that's how
yeah,
you treat him. You just like hide him behind stuff and nothing to see here.
yeah.
Like, my God, what a shit show.
I saw people like the Centel was like trending for a while, and then like everybody was like replying to trades and different tweets saying like, "Oh, this isn't Centel," and like I saw one that was Centel, and it said like it was after the Luka trade, saying like Kyrie has now requested a trade from the Mavericks, and one of the top comments on it was like, "This is Centel now, but just wait, it may not be here soon." But
What
yeah,
what
the
I
the
want to
fact
do
that the
because
trending,
Luca was saying stuff like, "Yeah, they got rid of everybody I liked,"
mhm,
and that made me wonder. Okay, was there chemistry with this current team? Was it a problem, or was he still a professional and they just did this? I mean,
mhm,
it's nuts, but I do kind of feel bad for him. Feels like he's done nothing but just work and help
mhm.
that franchise,
I'm sure
and it
you've
still
seen
wasn't
the
enough.
I'm sure you've seen the trending meme of the Luca could be in the back smoking crack and you still don't trade. I don't know if you've seen that. But like
Yeah,
cuz the big deal was like, oh, they traded him cuz of conditioning, but it's still Luca. And you brought up the team chemistry thing. But people were making edits of like him and Kyrie's interview about like how him and Kyrie were calling each other like brothers and stuff like that, and they were really
mhm.
close. Um, so, but I saw a lot of theories that was like, and I don't want to really get into like the politics and everything like that, so I'm just gonna do like surface level. But I did see a lot of people saying like, "Oh, this is because of capitalism and like all the people that bought the team from Mark Cuban don't care and they're intentionally trying to destroy the franchise to build a stadium in Vegas and move the team." And I don't know about all that. I just wanted to mention it cuz I know that's like a theory that's going around. But every
Yeah.
time stuff like that gets mentioned, I kind of take it with a grain of salt because the politics, like the world of politics has been crazy for a while. And again, I'm not going to go into politics and stuff, but I will say, and I've mentioned it to a few of my friends before, that I do feel like there is a lot of I like to call it tinfoil hattiness going around.
Oh yeah.
And and so I I really want to take like the whole, like I can understand people's perspective on that, like, oh, they're intentionally destroying the team in order to build a stadium. And it's like whenever you go through records about how like they were denied a casino location in Texas and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, some of the red string connects if you're putting it on the bulletin board and stuff. But again, it's like nothing is definitive, and because I saw a different source that said the opposite, that was like Nico Harris went to the owner about the trade, and like the
Yeah, he
owners
signed
had
off
like
on
laughed at him and saying like, don't trade Luka, that's ridiculous, and then he did it anyway. So it's like, you can't say that the owners enticed him to do this and that the owners laughed him off at the same time.
it.
You can't, you got to have one or the other. So
From what
it's
it
just,
seemed, almost everybody he approached laughed him off at
yeah.
first.
I
I
saw all the
mean,
memes where it was like Jason Kidd learned in this interview that he's supportive of it. Like, I don't know if you saw
poor
that.
JC Kidd was just sitting there like,
Apparently I'm in
"God,
support of this. I
come on,
didn't know
man."
until you said it.
Well, yeah, he took 3 questions and then left Jason Kidd there to deal with all of it. I was like,
Mhm.
man, I've never felt all that bad for Jason Kidd, but I really did in that moment.
Mhm.
I yeah, I don't know if I'll ever understand that move. And I was talking to some people. I was like, I'm ashamed that his last name is my first name, the GM.
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, I'm ashamed to have a Harrison associated with this. I was like, but that said, if this somehow works out for the Mavericks and they win all these titles as a result of this, he goes down as the GOAT because nobody else would have made that
Oh
trade.
yeah, dude. If somehow it ends up working, then I'll give him the credit he deserves. But dude, um, what was the other thing I was gonna say? I just completely lost my train of thought. Uh, oh well, I guess I'll just go into the actual basketball side of it. I completely. Oh, I remember now. Sorry, ADHD brain, not good while doing a podcast, but it is what it is.
Hey, keep it moving.
They were saying that there was some reports, or again, this is like tinfoil hattiness, but there were some reports that like Nico was trying to get a job in LA, and so like
Yeah, I'd
he
seen that
may be
too.
like preparing himself, like he's trying to get Luka to the Lakers, because then he'll be on the Lakers and still have Luka and like all this stuff. And but what's funny to me though is I don't believe all the kids. I don't think it's any conspiracy. I think Nico is just a bad GM and there's nothing else
Thanks,
conspiracy
too.
about it, because I saw that people were talking about this, and some of my coworkers that are actually big basketball fans didn't even know about this. But this is the same guy that messed up the Steph Curry deal. Did you know about that?
Oh
You,
yeah, yeah. The him signing with Nike. That's why he's with Under Armour
yeah,
because
because
the
Nico's the same guy that made the PowerPoint where it said Steven on it. It's this. Nico was the guy in charge of that PowerPoint and presentation.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's I mean, it's just a lack of attention to detail, but
mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, how long has Nico Harrison been the GM there? Let me see, because I want to
I
kind
mean,
of
to
delve
be
into
honest,
that.
I would assume it hasn't been that long, because this is the first time I've like, besides the Steph Curry stuff, this is the first time I've heard his name. Like, I've heard his name with Nike and everything, but not with the Mavericks. So
2021 looks like.
yeah, so only a few
Um,
years.
yeah. So, and let me see something here because this is also a point I want to bring up, and I think yeah, that tracks. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he comes in 2021. I mean, it's the same thing. The Mavs went to the Western Conference Finals that year.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when they just like hammered the Suns in that game 7?
Mm-hmm.
And they get to the end of that year. I mean, he traded away Porzingis that season after the Mavs had like the best offense in history and all that. And yeah, Porzingis gets injured, some whatever, all those things. Then they don't want to pay Brunson in the offseason, so they just let him go for nothing to New
Mm-hmm.
York. And I'm just thinking, what are you doing, man? Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a huge one to me because Brunson's one of the best point guards in the NBA. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a 26 point scorer and 8 assists a night guy that you just let walk for nothing to a bargain deal.
I've seen a lot of people
And
talking about Brunson because of this. Like, oh, that you were gonna pass up on me so you can have Luka, but now Luka's only worth AD.
yeah, exactly. Well, and like Brunson and Luca really liked playing with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the craziest thing about that is he went and got Kyrie Irving, who is just an older scoring guard than Brunson. And well, or actually, they may be about the same age. I think Brunson's like 28. I can't remember how old Kyrie is.
Mm-hmm.
He was drafted in 2012, so he's got to be like 31. So yeah, a little bit older. But you go and get Kyrie and trade away a bunch to do that after. It's like I felt like you're getting the same type of player that you already had homegrown with the connection already established,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go after you've dismantled all this team and gotten rid of the guys he likes, you go and trade away a bunch of other guys to build around Luca. You finally get a team that can go to the finals, and then you trade the centerpiece of that.
Mm-hmm. Do
I
you
just,
think
yeah,
do you think that's maybe why they got AD then? Because Cat went to the Knicks and they've been doing well with Brunson and Cat together as a good point guard and center. And then you go you were saying Kyrie is like an older version of Brunson. So maybe they're trying to do something like that where they're like, "Oh, well we'll get our own version of Brunson and Cat with Kyrie and AD, except they're both like 34."
yeah. There's that, but also they don't have the other players the Knicks have.
Mhm.
I mean, like Josh Hart's there, coming off the bench, playing really well. He's amazing. They got Ananobi. I mean, granted, I know he's injured now, but they've had
Mhm.
him, who's really, really good. They went out and got Mikal Bridges, and I don't really know who on the Mavericks you could say is as good as Mikal Bridges, other than like Luca and Kyrie. I don't really think they had a guy like that. No disrespect to a bunch of people, but then like they went and traded Quentin Grimes for Martin, and Quentin Grimes was you gave up him and 2 picks, and you got a guy who averages less points, shoots the ball worst, and I think is about the same of a defender. I just a lot of those moves perplexed me
Mhm.
for the Mavs, but I don't know. I'm not gonna shit on them over and over because like it may work out, and I think with what they have on the roster, they could feasibly still contend this year and be a solid playoff team. I'll just have to see them a bit more.
Mhm. I don't think the Mavs are gonna do anything in the playoffs this year because I've gone on record and you should know this because again you've been on the podcast multiple times by now. You're a recurring guest, but I am sort of a um AD hater as you could say, and I've been self-proclaimed that for a while. And I'm one of those people that says AD stands for always damaged. So Kyrie, AD, and who was the third one? Clay Thompson. I saw people tweeting that like, oh, this is what the Mavs roster is gonna look like in the playoffs, and it was a picture of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward in the hospital. Uh, and I again, it's just everybody talks about ages whenever people get traded, which we'll bring up, I'm sure, with the Wizards trade as well. But it's because age is important, man, and like that's why people talk about LeBron still playing at his age, and Tim Duncan still played at his age as well, because it's like to go until you're 40 playing, like my dad's like just turned 49. I cannot imagine somebody like my dad's age 9 years ago going and trying to play professional basketball. Uh,
Exactly.
but it's like you land the wrong way, and that could be the rest of your career. I mean, even Al Horford. Al Horford's still playing with the Celtics, and he's up there in age, and he's freaking still shooting threes with that team, which is crazy to me.
Mm,
Um,
Well,
but
I'll give
yeah.
AD. He managed to stay pretty healthy the last couple seasons, but I mean, yeah, it's like you're saying he's 31 years old, gonna be 32. You think, and that's the thing. I think people are spoiled here. LeBron James is an anomaly, man. Like,
Mhm.
people do not play that well throughout their career for that long.
Mhm.
And even I think what gets lost with him is even he's taken a step back. I mean, LeBron used to be like arguably the best defender in the league. Like switchable wise, he's not that anymore. You know, it's you
Mhm.
can tell putting up those offensive numbers, it kind of gasses him. Um, and all that, but still, it's incredible. But I love how people use LeBron to say like, "Oh, well, he's doing it. This guy can do it too." I'm like, "No, dude. This is not a normal thing we're
Yeah.
watching. People do not do this at age 40, and
Mhm.
I don't think that AD is going to do that at age 37. I mean,
Mhm.
I we're Spurs fans. We watched Tim Duncan, albeit very effective. We watched
Mhm.
his numbers sort of start to decline at
And
36,
even Tim Duncan,
37.
he wanted to retire in '07, and we encouraged him to stay for a while. Or
Right.
like he wanted to retire with like 4 rings, and he wanted to retire, I think, when and then like we encouraged him to stay 2 or 3 times, I think. Like I think he wanted to retire around when he was like age 35 or something like that too. I may have like the numbers off, but I remember he wanted to retire before the championship before 2014, which was 2007. Then he wanted to retire a few years after that once he was like in his late 30s. And then
Um,
finally we won another championship in 2014, and that's right when he turned 40. And he's like, "All right guys, I have 5 rings. I'm 40. Now I'm finally retiring
yeah.
after like the third time that I said I'm going to retire." So, but yeah, it's crazy to me. And obviously like people, another big reason like people are saying the Lakers won the trade is because of that. Like when LeBron does retire, you need some sort of uh like backup or like something there, which I thought was going to be AD. I even made a video long before that said like LeBron is going to give the torch to AD to sort of be the father figure to Bronny in the league.
Mhm.
And then yeah, but to put that more into like actual on the court, we've talked a lot off the court for a while, but let let's establish what each team really gained and lost. The Lakers, originally I was going to go into this episode talking about how the Lakers ultimately have zero defense now, and they got Luka, but they were going to have zero defense, so it wasn't going to matter. I felt like it was going to be a Jokic situation where Jokic scored 53 in that one game and they still lost because the Nuggets net rating was just so bad that even if the team scored 110, they were allowing 120.
Right.
So I thought it was going to be something similar to that, or even the Brooklyn Nets back when it was KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Their entire strategy was just shoot the ball and score as many as you can. And you saw that the
Exactly.
Brooklyn Nets were having games where they had 140, but then the other team had 150 because they had zero
Mhm.
defense. And I thought it was going to be a similar situation, and I was fully prepared to come into this episode and talk about that. And then they went and traded for centers from the Hornets. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, okay,
Although,
they kind of solved that problem a little bit, but I still feel like they may be a little weak on defense. Luka has been notorious for, like, he has that whole narrative about Luka being bad on defense. I actually supported Luka in these past playoffs because I felt like Luka's defense was one of the main reasons they beat the Clippers. Because Luka was crazy on defense, and I did a whole video about that where I was like, Luka has no defense narrative officially destroyed. And then after that, he proceeded to have no defense again for the rest of the playoffs.
well, I mean,
Uh,
also it's just they couldn't score, and he had to take on the scoring burden. I mean, that
mhm,
Celtics defense is just 1 through 5 stingy, and it was like everybody getting shut down and him having to do so. Like,
mhm,
I get it. It'll tire you out. It's hard. Not to say, oh, you shouldn't play defense, but I get it. But as
mhm,
far as the Lakers go, I don't know. I didn't really like their center trade. Um,
mhm.
I mean, have you taken a look at the games played Mark Williams has?
No, let me pull up his stats real quick. I know that people were saying that it was at least better than the center they had though, right?
See, his stats are fine, but he's like barely played a full season's worth of games in his 3-year career. Like
Oh, yeah.
he's
Games
got
played
back
43,
problems.
games played 19, games played 23.
Yeah, and I mean, he's also just not a good defender. Um, a lot of these
Mm,
games you watch, these guys will go off for career highs against the Hornets, and if you go back and watch it, it's like they're scoring it on him.
mm,
And he puts up some gaudy numbers in the last few games, and he's a good player. I want to preface that with this. He's a good player. He was a solid college player, and he can put up some points and rebounds. But I
mm-hmm.
don't know that he's going to do much defensively. His defensive IQ is bad. If he gets lost out there,
Yeah.
and if
His
he can stay
last
healthy,
game.
that's a lob threat for all them. But
Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. I
I
heard you take a breath and I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut you off.
man, cut
Um,
me off whenever you want. This is your show.
I just don't want to be like that. I just don't want like people viewing to be like, man, this host doesn't let his guests talk. But I was gonna say
That's
in
it.
his last game he had -23 against Milwaukee, so -23 plus minus. So it seems like if he was paired up against like Giannis or somebody, then yeah, they were giving him work. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of just plays defensively where it's like, whoa, why are you falling for this? Why are you
mhm,
doing this? And I mean, look, now he gets to play with LeBron James, the guy's the best player of our generation, I think, and
mhm,
it's so maybe he'll learn some things and figure it out. But I felt like it was more of a desperation move with like, hey, we need to get some size in here next to these guys because now we got no one.
mhm,
But shout out to the Hornets because they got a good return for him, and I didn't think it was worth that kind of return.
mhm. What do you think of the team chemistry of the Lakers with this? Because I've seen conflicting reports where it was always like, at first, obviously, it was like, oh, I feel so bad for Luka, like his heart must be broken and all that. And then the opposite side of it, where it was like, Luka's flashing the LA signs as soon as he gets off the plane. He's laughing on the bench with LeBron. He's cheering on Bronny after his first three and like all this, but then you also see tears in his eyes with the different pictures because he's sad he has to leave Dallas, and it's like I don't know which side to take. Is he like sad that he's leaving Dallas, or is he like psyched that it's like, oh, I'm in LA and I'm on the Lakers, like arguably one of the most popular teams in the NBA, or is it simply Occam's razor where the explanation is it isn't one or the other, it is both, and it's like a mixed emotions where it's like I really didn't want to leave Dallas, but at least it's the Lakers.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Lucas strikes me as one of those guys that like he seems just like a good dude that people get along with, and he's gonna go out and enjoy stuff and make the best of it. But like I was even reading stuff, reports talking about like how Lakers players were saying like, yeah, he's been a great teammate. He's showing up to shoot around. He's having fun, but like he still looks like kind of stunned at times, and
Mhm.
it's kind of like, yeah, this is my life now, and
Mhm.
and stuff. So I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I think he's a professional, so he's gonna make the most of it, and yeah, he loves basketball, so he's
Mhm.
gonna enjoy that his life is getting to play that. But like, I mean, he it's like if you have your whole life mapped out how you think it's gonna go, and all of a sudden after 7 years, it's just uprooted with no notice. So that's gotta be rough. So I think he's
Yeah.
probably, happy, to figure stuff out and, get to know new teammates who want him there and a front office that wants him there. But it's still got to hurt that, like,
Mhm.
I mean, that team chose, he was 19 when they picked him to be the face of their franchise. I mean, he was
Mhm.
a kid. I mean, he's a man now, but he's a very young man. I look back when I was 25. I'm like, man, that would kill me.
I was
Just
barely
having that
19 when I
happen and
started the
not knowing.
podcast, bro. Like you knew me when I was like 20, like that was when like I think we had the first episode together whenever I turned 20. So like
Yeah, yeah. I was how old are you now?
22, gonna turn 23 this year. So.
Okay, yeah. So I was like 26, 27 because I'm 30 now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can't imagine being 25 years old, just being told like, "Yep, hey, you've built your whole life in this city. Bye.
Yeah.
Here's your plane ticket. You're gonna have to find another home. Yeah, good luck to you."
Mm-hmm. I don't want to leave the Luka trade yet, but speaking of like picking up your life and everything, I saw people tweeting that Dennis Schroeder needs to just live inside of a U-Haul from now on.
Yeah, you poor Dennis Curry, he had that hard hitting quote about the trade market being like slavery. Then he gets traded like fucking 5 times.
Yeah, they tweeted it was 4 teams in 24 hours. And then they remade, I don't know if you saw this, they remade that infamous Shaq Skittles jerseys but with Dennis Schroeder instead, where it was like Shaq in like all of his different colored jerseys, but this time it's him, where it's like
In
the
one
yellow,
day.
the red, the green, like all that. Um but with the Luka trade, because again, I know that we've been talking about the Luka trade for a while. I promise we're gonna get into other trades here in a second, but we obviously had to start out with the Luka trade, and it was gonna go on for a while because it's arguably, well, not even arguably, like the biggest trade that happened like around the deadline. But I'm I'm interested if this was a tactic for the Nuggets, like to counteract the Nuggets, I mean. Because what is the team that constantly has been joked about beating the Lakers like these last like 4 seasons? It's always
Yeah.
like, oh, the Lakers are doing really well regular season, but as soon as they face the Nuggets, it's like, oh, we gotta face fucking Jokic again. Pack it up, boys. But what are the three teams that actually give the Nuggets problems? Aside from this season, because this season I've already made a whole video about how Jokic's team is letting him down. But I would say the three teams that actually give the Nuggets problems are OKC. Um, I forgot the other one I was gonna say. Uh, or the Timberwolves was gonna be the second one, but that was prior to this season.
Prior to Cat, yeah.
And then the Mavericks, simply because Luka and Jokic know each other's game so well, and they're buddies. So I feel like, in a way, I mean, this is going under the assumption that Luka to the Lakers was planned, which I don't feel like it was. But
Nah, I don't.
I
If
feel
it
like
was, that's like a conspiracy of levels beyond my comprehension. Like, and hats off to him.
I was I was gonna say, like, if Rob Pelinka somehow, because the reports were that Nico brought up Luka in the trade first, but I feel like if Rob Pelinka had pushed to get Luka, one of the reasons could be that it could be a deterrent and sort of a counter to Jokic in a way. But I don't know. It's kind of reaching, I will admit. But
I honestly think more because they talked about Palinka. He brought up Palinka's first reaction. Even Palinka kind of laughed off the idea
mhm,
because he liked AD so much and his fit with the team and all that. And he was like, well, maybe I'd do that. And then more and more what we're hearing is just like, yeah, there's kind of some friction between AD and the front office. And it sounds to me like he thought, oh, this doesn't look like it's going to end well. And then the opportunity was there. And it was just like, you know what? Let's do it.
mhm. Which is
But
crazy to me because everybody talks about like, oh, AD and LeBron are such good friends. LeBron would never sign off on a trade with with AD, but it's like, and then it happened.
well, the thing is, like, okay, put it this way, like, I mean, you and your best friend could work at the same place together, and if you legitimately hate that company and you feel like they're doing you wrong, I mean, are you gonna stay there just because your friend's there if you get offered a better deal?
Mhm.
Like, I've done that plenty of time. I've worked with friends, and I leave for a different job because I want to go somewhere that treats me better. And it sucks, but like, I'm not going to let them tie me to that the whole time. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where stuff gets overblown. But I do wonder because now I feel like the big burden is on LA to convince Luka to re-sign there because
Mm-hmm.
trading him away, he's ineligible for the Supermax now. But also, now he doesn't have to sign with LA. I think his best bet is probably, you know, staying somewhere for 3 years wherever he goes this off season, and
Mm-hmm.
then being eligible for, the 10-year veteran Supermax extension.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be LA. And I do feel like everyone's saying it's a foregone conclusion that Palinka won the trade because he got Luka, but like now the pressure's on. You got to convince him, hey, to stay. And then on the lines of what you were saying, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people wondering like what happens with Denver because like they could feasibly clear space and go out and offer him and get him and Jokic to play together
And they've
since they're
wanted
such
to
good
play together
friends.
forever too, is the thing. So
Exactly.
as soon as it's offered to Luca, he's gonna take it as well. So, but yeah, like you said, like with the whole everybody's on the foregone conclusion of LA won the trade. Did you see the whole? Again, this is sort of like conspiracy theory, but I like to believe it just because it's funny. The theory that Kendrick Perkins is hired by ESPN specifically to intentionally have bad takes, because he tweeted after the Luka trade like, the Mavericks won this trade, y'all ain't ready for AD, and everybody was like, Kendrick, shut the fuck up. Like, and then afterwards he made another tweet that was saying like, oh yeah, I was the leader of OKC, and KD had tweeted about that. And
All
it's
that.
like, dude, he has nothing but bad takes. And people were saying like, I feel like that's intentional at this point. Like that's his job, so that it can create like the term rage bait on like Instagram or TikTok, where it's like you post something intentionally bad so that you get comments and
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that responding to it to boost the algorithm. Like people are saying like Kendrick Perkins is hired to be intentional rage bait.
Sorry, De'Aaron Fox just hit a buzzer beater three to win the game for San Antonio.
Oh, nice. I was gonna bring that up later with the trade. Was like, I like right before we were about to record the episode, I was watching highlights on Twitter of Jokic, or not Jokic, Wemby. Sorry, we were talking about the Nuggets earlier. Wemby blocking shots while not even jumping and stuff like that. But yeah.
Oh
Um,
man, yeah, it's uh, yeah, I saw that. What was it? I was gonna say, like, it's so funny because we spent most of 2024 talking about another Kendrick, just spitting absolute fire, and I feel like he's
yeah.
also there to balance out the Kendricks of the world.
Oh yeah, you got Kendrick Lamar who just won five
Yeah,
Grammys,
Kendrick
and then you got
Lamar's coming
Kendrick
with this
Perkins.
absolute heat, and
So.
then Kendrick Perkins is cooling it down as fast as
Mhm.
fast as he could.
Mhm. Um, anything else on the Luca trade? I know there's a lot of talk. I know you probably certainly do have more because there's plenty to talk about. But we've already been going for 45 minutes, I think, and we still got like four more trades to get through. So we got
Oh yeah, let's
De'Aaron
move on to the other
Fox
one.
and Jimmy Butler and the Wizards and yeah, so let's go ahead and go into the second biggest trade, at least for us. We may have some bias, but De'Aaron
Yeah,
Fox to the
Fox's
Spurs.
bucket didn't count.
I intentionally for this episode decided to wear one of my San Antonio shirts, and before the De'Aaron Fox trade even happened, I asked Swiss Seal if he could come on this episode. But then the De'Aaron Fox trade happened, and we both texted each other immediately, and we're like, "Well, now we really got to have you on for Friday because we need the other Spurs fans' perspective." But I will say this actually kind of um connects us even in another way, because the way that I found out about the trade was through Clan's Discord. I wasn't even on Twitter. I just got the at everyone like DeAaron to the Spurs in Clan's Discord, and I had checked it out. So I don't know if that's how you found out as well, was through Clan's Discord, because I know you and Clan are really close, obviously, because we talk about that all the time, or if you found
Um,
out through Twitter. But I remember I saw it was funny too, because like my girlfriend, I love my girlfriend so much, and we share the office together because it's a 2 bedroom, and she had, it was Sunday, I think. So she was like, I gotta get this homework done because she still has a semester of school left. So she's like, I gotta get this homework done, and she has like sort of ADHD like me. So sometimes like she'll watch videos while she's doing homework and like stuff like that. And I don't want to get like too personal and get too much into it, but like sometimes she gets distracted doing homework, just like I get distracted sometimes. And so she was like telling me like in a real nice way, because she's really awesome. She was like, all right, I know we share an office, I know you're gonna be on the computer, and like usually we like hug and stuff, because like while we're doing homework, like we'll take breaks and like just kind of chill and stuff because we share an office. But she was like, I need you to like just let me lock in, let me do this homework, don't distract me, like all that, because I really need to get this done for Sunday, because it's, Sunday midnight homework and stuff. And I remember I got up out of the chair in the office, and I walked out of the room and into the bedroom and was just on my phone. And I came back into the room, and I like gave her a kiss on the forehead, and I was like, I know you said not to distract you, but I really want to scream right now, because I walked out of the room whenever they said DeAaron to the Spurs. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, remember where you were. So I can explain the events perfectly, where I saw DeAaron to the Spurs and I shot up out of my chair, but I didn't get too excited yet, because I was like, well, who did we trade? And then like I walked out of the room, and that's why I was just scrolling on my phone for like 10-15 minutes or whatever it was. I would say closer to 10 minutes. um and I was like, well, who do we trade? Who do we trade? And of course, Clan's Discord was blowing up with the same exact question. It was like, well, who do we trade? Who do we trade? And I'm sorry, I don't remember this guy's username, but he was one of Clan's mods in there, was really smart and was like doing the math and was like, well, Kevin Herter contract is 17 million, which means in order to equal it, we would need to trade this much million. So that means we probably got rid of either Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson. And I was like, I really like Keldon, but I hope it's at least Keldon over Devin. I would rather keep Vassell. And then like, but I was like, don't celebrate that we got DeAaron yet. Let's see what we traded. We gotta keep a neutral reaction here. And then it came out that all we traded was Trey Jones, and Zach Collins, which Zach people have been complaining to trade Zach Collins for a while because he takes too many minutes away from Wemby. And so that's whenever I came back into the room and was like, I want to scream, because we just fleeced the fucking Kings. Like, we just fleeced the Kings. But what was funny though is that, like, again, not to get like too personal and give too many details, my girlfriend actually works at a place that does birthdays in San Antonio. And whenever she was like, well, who did we trade? And I said we traded Trey Jones, and she actually got sad. And it's like one of the Spurs players she knows. And so she was like, no, we traded Trey Jones. And I was like, yeah, what's the problem? And she was like, he brought his kid to the place to have his birthday. I know his family. Like, I'm sad I'm not going to see him at the birthdays anymore. And I told her, I was like, well, if you want to go see him, you got to go to Sacramento now. So,
Dude, that's like similar. And granted, this was a few years back, because when my girlfriend really started like watching the Spurs with me,
hmm
and just fell in love with Derek White, and with like
hmm
that was her favorite player. And tells me, yeah, he's my favorite player. I really like him. 2 weeks later, we trade him to the Celtics. I
yeah.
was like, oh, damn it! There goes ever sharing that interest again.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
no, it was crazy because like I still have a couple connections in the NBA from my
hmm
my old job back in the day, and
hmm
I got a text and they said like, "Hey, Fox trade's going through," and I was like, "Oh." Shit. And they basically what I got was get ready to see the return with like the eyes emoji. And I was like, what did we do? I when they said that I thought like, oh, maybe we got a player coming with them. Like, oh, did they bring Malik Monk with them or something like that? And then it came through and I was like, no way, that's all we gave up. Like that's it. And I wonder if the Luka trade changed the landscape with that sum.
Mm-hmm.
But and honestly, I couldn't believe the Bulls took that deal because I don't really feel like they got anything. They got their own first round pick back that they're already going to keep because they're just tanking now. So I didn't understand that. They got rid of Zach LaVine, got no picks for him. And then Trey Jones and Zach Collins probably aren't going to be there very long. Kevin Herter, I know they had wanted prior when they were trading DeRozan to them this summer. It's like, man, I cannot believe we did this.
Yeah. I just texted my girlfriend asking because she was joking with me before about because she has to do homework right now. And she was like, "Oh, well, can I come in the office while you're recording and stuff like that to do homework?" And I told her I was like, "Well, I'm gonna be on camera, so if you don't want to be on camera, then Um, but then I texted her just now and I was like, "Do you want to give your side of the story of how I reacted to DeAaron Fox real quick? Like, if you want to come be on the episode, because she was joking earlier, like, oh, can I be on the episode?" And she was joking, like she just texted me back joking around, and she was like, "Nah, I'm in my PJs right now." So I was like, she was like, "Not right now, I'm in PJs," and I was like, "Okay, fair enough." um, but yeah, dude, the De'Aaron Fox, uh, uh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, she was really disappointed about the Trey Jones and stuff like that, and I think it was just funny because like my girlfriend, she's awesome, she's really sweet, and so I love that like the first thing that she reacted was like, oh, I'm not gonna see Trey Jones and his kid anymore, and Matt Bonner was like she had said like Matt Bonner had came as well. Like we've seen a ton of Spurs players like where she works. Like I have a picture with David Robinson, where we went like for our first date. We've actually seen like a lot of Spurs players while walking around San Antonio, which is pretty crazy. But back to the actual trade and stuff. Um, Again, I think we fleeced them, man, which is crazy because like we were able to keep Vassell, we were able to keep Keldon, um, we were able to keep Castle, Sohan, because I saw people talking about like, oh, we may have traded Sohan, and I was like, I really hope not, man, because I know the media went after Sohan like so much, like a few years ago, whenever we traded Dejounte and we didn't have like a decent point guard, they attacked Sohan so hard, and I was like, Sohan's a good player. Y'all just like gotta wait and like see this
It's
development.
great.
Yeah, and he's amazing now, and I was like, I hope the Spurs didn't let like the media get to them and trade Sohan for Fox, and I'm glad they didn't. And then I also saw that like before they came out with the trade details, they said straight up before like that the first thing that the Spurs said was Castle is off limits, and I was like, nice. So it was already confirmed before all the trade details came out that like Castle wasn't a part of it. So
Yeah, and I thought for sure I was like Keldon has to be gone. I just thought with the contracts it has to be.
mm-hmm,
Um and apparently we were even looking at thinking we were going to have to deal him and then talk them into taking him out of it. And I was like, all right, but I still kind of wonder with him what his fit with the team is and all that, and if he ends up sticking around. But I still feel like the Spurs team is kind of incomplete as is. But I feel like
mm-hmm,
with the Spurs, what annoys me is there's just a lot of hate going around for a couple guys with no basis. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Devin Vassell's getting a lot of hate, and I don't know why. He's
Really? I thought people loved Vassell.
Yes,
I haven't.
I've seen a ton of people saying, "Oh, we need to get rid of him." I'm like, he's been fine. In a down year, he's
Mm.
shooting like
I
45%
know
from the
he's had like
field,
some
36
injuries
from
issues.
three.
Is that like the core part of it, or is it something else?
Wait, he's had what issues?
He's had like injury issues like the last couple seasons. Is that the main root of it, or? Why are people hating
I
on
don't
him?
know what I mean. I think the main root of it is he's not scoring 30 a night, and he's
Mm-hmm.
just not going to. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Did
I
people
thought it was
forget
worth
what Spurs
seeing.
basketball is? Nobody scores 30 a night on the Spurs. The
Yeah,
whole
well,
point is that
I
everybody
thought
scores
it was
20
worth.
together.
I thought it was worth seeing if he could be like a number two option last year. And there were times where he showed flashes that I was like, "Whoa, maybe he can." But
Mm-hmm.
the more I watched, the more I was like, "Nah, I think he's the third option on a good team and all
Mm-hmm.
that." And he functions better off ball. We saw. I mean, tonight, I know this is the thing that bugs me. People are going to throw stats around and stuff. Tonight, the Spurs lost. They declared that Fox's buzzer beater didn't count.
Mm.
Um, but if you take a look at let's look at tonight's game, because I've even got people texting me right now
Yeah.
saying Vassell needs to go.
I
If you
saw
look at the game, the leader in plus minus for the game is Devin Vassell with plus 19.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if that'll come through there. But I mean, plus 19 in a game where the Spurs were down 20 at one
Mm-hmm.
point. We are at our best with him on the court. Against the Hawks, it showed tremendously once we got Fox. They put Dyson Daniels on Fox, and Vassell had like 7 of the first 10 points of the game
Mm-hmm.
and all that. All I see is people harping on percentages and this and that. I'm like, he is fine.
Yeah. I
Same
like
with
the starting
Sohan. I see
lineup
a lot of the
of
shit where, he can't shoot and he does not need to shoot.
I like the starting there's a starting five of like De'Aaron Fox, Vassell, um Keldon, Wemby, and I forget who was the middle person in there. But it was like I think it was De'Aaron Fox, Vassell, Sohan, Keldon, Wimby, or something like that. And I was like, it's a pretty solid starting five, because again, like people can cherry pick out of that starting five people they don't like, because I prefer Vassell over Keldon. Like if we had to trade one of them, to be honest,
Easily.
I like Keldon, but I would get rid of Keldon. So it's like I could see people hating on Vassell. I could see people hating on Keldon if they had to pick one to hate on. And that's kind of how I am with Keldon. It's like I love everybody on the Spurs, but if you like, if it was one of those things where it was like we have to trade somebody to get De'Aaron, and like before it was like we thought it was
Bye
going to be
bye. Thank
Vassell or
you.
Keldon, I would pick Keldon over anybody else to trade. And
Easily.
I see people being the other way of like they would rather trade Vassell and keep Keldon. So like I understand that side of it maybe if like you had to choose one to get rid of. But I think that that's a pretty solid starting five of those five. I really like Sohan. De'Aaron Fox, obviously an all-star. You have Wemby. Vassell's pretty solid. Keldon's pretty solid. Like, again, if you had to choose a weak link of the starting five, you could either say Vassell or Keldon. But just because they're the weaker of the starting five doesn't mean they're not great. I mean, it just means that the other three on the team are a level above them.
Yeah, with Keldon, see, my ideal starting five, I want them to go Fox, Vassell, Barnes, Sohan, and Wemby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's my ideal there. You've got spacing, shooting, size, defense, scoring, creation, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my thing with Keldon is I just think his fit with his skill set is rocky with this team. It's been getting rockier as we've been adding to it, and the identity of the team has taken shape. But everyone likes to point and say, "Well, he scored 20 points a game." And I'm like, "Yeah, we were tanking."
Yeah.
So we went out there, we let him do whatever he wanted. And yeah, he's great at driving to the rim and dunking it, but it's shown this year in a larger motion offense. He struggles to shoot a little bit more effectively because he's not a movement shooter. He's more of a set shooter. And then, with guys like Sohan getting down there in the paint, he struggles to find space. He doesn't really have a mid range game. And I love him to death. I think he's a great guy, but I worry about his fit. And it's crazy to me that people are willing to let go of people like Vassell and Sohan
Mm-hmm.
so quickly when Sohan is literally one of the best defenders in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean,
I
he's
agree,
6'8".
man.
Yeah, you look at the percentages that he holds guys like SGA to and stuff like that, and
That's why I
it's
love him and Wemby
nuts.
together, man. It's like
Hmm.
you got the short defense with the steals, and you got the tall defense with Wemby and blocks. It's like it's
Yeah,
perfect.
And I don't understand because the knock on Vassell is his defense hasn't been that good, and it's actually been better this year than it has been at all in years past.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm biased because coming at it from I love doing draft evaluations. I think Vassell has progressed more than I ever thought he would, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm very satisfied with where he's
Mm-hmm.
at. But I don't understand. I think Fox was a great step for the Spurs. I think they got some more to do. They're going to add a top 10 pick this year. They've got the Hawks pick.
Mm-hmm.
They can trade away their own pick and sign somebody or use that on someone. I mean, they're not done.
Yeah. I I saw so they played amazing in the Hawks game. So I really think the pairing will do well. But I want to kind of shift this away from the Spurs side of it cuz obviously we're massive Spurs fans, so we could go for hours about the Spurs side of it. But I want to talk about the Kings and the Bulls side of it because I saw we just talked at length about how Nico did a terrible job at the Luka trade, but I saw people joking that Nico might have competition with the Bulls GM because they were talking about like throughout the DeAaron or not DeAaron throughout the DeMar DeRozan trade, the Zach LaVine trade, throughout like the last three trades the Bulls have done, they got no picks in return.
Mhm.
And we were able, you mentioned like we were able to keep our Hawks pick, which was really good. And I saw people making TikToks about it where they're like Brian Wright is Jesus and like all this other stuff. But yeah, it's the Bulls really dropped the ball. I will defend the Kings though, because a lot of people are hating the Kings, saying like, oh, they're just recreating the Bulls team from before because now they have DeMar DeRozan, they have Levine, and then they were saying like,
He
uh,
did all right for a while when everyone was healthy.
yeah, I saw somebody like they were even taking it a step further besides just Demar and Levine together, and they were saying like, I forget the player's name was on the Kings, so forgive me, but they were saying like, oh yeah, this guy is just another version of Caruso, and this guy's just another version of Nikola Vucevic, and like stuff like that. So they were saying like they're really just building the Bulls again, but I saw some people commenting saying like, yeah, but the problem with the Bulls was is that they had like zero bench while the
Mhm.
Kings do. So it's like
Yeah,
where the Bulls were a playing team and failed, the Kings have like the next step to take what the Bulls team could have been.
yeah.
So,
I'll give the Kings. I mean, for someone whose best player requested out and they traded him, they did a pretty good job salvaging what they could out of it
mhm,
since they wanted to stay competitive. Um, I mean, Zach Levine's having a phenomenal season, like incredibly efficient, just great all around season. And we've seen that he can play with DeRozan before, so now you get them two together. Sabonis is a good player. Monk has got passing vision people never really know about, and he's
mhm,
playing point guard. And they went and added, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I don't love Valanciunas. I didn't understand people wanting the Spurs to trade for him, but
mhm,
throw him in as a backup center, and then they kept Trey Lyles, and they were able to add Jake LaRavia to it. Like that, I mean, that's a bench. Guys like LaRavia, they do all the little things to win, and he was solid in Memphis, and
yeah,
now he's going to be solid there. I'm like, yeah, I think given the situation for them, they did pretty well overall
yeah.
to get that team back together. The
I think
Bulls,
it's just a completely new business model is the only thing because
mhm,
I talked before about how the Kings had like really good shooters and like they were playing team basketball and I mean me and you talked about it before like the Kings were sort of engineered in a way similar to like the 2014 Spurs and they had Mike Brown who was under Popovich and I was like they're really engineering like the Spurs 2.0, but then they got rid of De'Aaron Fox, obviously, who was like their main guy. That was like their Tony Parker. And then they got rid of Kevin Herter, who was their second shooter. And now they have De'Aaron Fox and Levine. So they did a good job. The only thing is, it's going to be a completely different direction from what it was before. And I think De'Aaron Fox requesting out of Sacramento as well kind of puts to bed the whole claims of like De'Aaron Fox wanted Mike Brown out. De'Aaron Fox is the reason that Mike Brown got fired and all that.
did you see the radio broadcast that came out today?
No, but it's crazy to me to be like De'Aaron Fox wanted Mike Brown out, and then as soon as Mike Brown's fired, De'Aaron Fox wants to be traded. That would make no sense if
Yeah,
he wanted Brown fired, and then they did fire him and he still wants out. It makes
one
no
of
sense
like
to
the
me.
Kings podcasters had like called out De'Aaron Fox on Twitter. They were talking about like, oh, the fox in the grass instead of the snake in the grass, and
Mm-hmm.
De'Aaron Fox responded and was like, it's funny because y'all think you know shit and you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, like, oh, De'Aaron has agreed to come on the podcast and explain. And basically what he said was in the offseason, he had no intent of leaving Sacramento. He
Mm-hmm.
said, like, but what he told them is, hey, I don't want to go through this bullshit of having, a fifth coach in my
Yeah.
career. I want Mike Brown to stay the coach.
Yeah.
If you want me here, you keep Mike Brown. And he said as soon as they fired Mike Brown, he was thinking, yeah, I'm probably gone. I'm probably traded. Um, and that's when this whole thing kind of started. And then all the rumors about Stephon Castle, he even showed the text from Steph Castle. He was like, this happened after I got traded, after the deal went through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I wasn't talking to him before. He texted and was just like, hey, can't wait to play with you. And I said, yeah, you're a big reason I want to go here, that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
Mike Brown actually was a huge reason he wanted to stay in
Yeah.
Sacramento, and they got rid of him, and then he didn't want to be there anymore.
Again, I've compared it to Popovich. I think we talked about this last podcast you were actually on, because I think it was that far back. Um, I talked about, because like the Mike Brown comparison to Popovich, where I said Mike Brown talks about De'Aaron Fox the same way that Popovich talks about Tim Duncan, where he said
Mhm.
De'Aaron Fox is the leader, but De'Aaron Fox allows himself to take in criticism from Mike Brown, and Mike Brown has commended De'Aaron Fox on that because he says if De'Aaron Fox would not allow himself to be coached, I could not coach the rest of the team. And I'm like, tell me that is not word for word the exact fucking quote Popovich said about Tim Duncan. That Tim Duncan is the leader, and had Tim Duncan not allowed like him to take in criticism from Pop would not have control over the Spurs. Is word for word Mike Brown to De'Aaron Fox from Popovich to Tim Duncan.
Mhm.
Um, and I talked about that, and I was like, that's like why whenever I saw like De'Aaron Fox is the reason that Mike Brown left, like De'Aaron Fox wanted Mike Brown out, I was like, that can't be right, because the way they talk about each other is just, they're, again, it's Tim Duncan and Pop. And of course, like, people could rebuttal that and be like, well, Tim Duncan wanted to go to Orlando, so it's not that crazy. But it's like, still, like, Pop and Tim Duncan, and until Tim Duncan became the assistant coach, were like they're like this. Um and then of course after Tim Duncan left being the assistant coach, like, people started drama with that. But besides that, the actual, when Tim Duncan was playing, really close. And it's the same thing with De'Aaron Fox. It's
Mhm.
like De'Aaron saw the vision with Mike Brown. There's no way that De'Aaron would have requested to Mike Brown be fired. Um,
When like
yeah.
people, it goes to show a lot of people say like coaches are useless in the NBA,
Hmm.
which is so funny because the instant their team does badly, they're like
They
fire
blame
the
the
coach.
coach.
But if they're good, the coach is useless. We don't need it. But coaches mean so much to guys, no matter
Hmm.
what age in the NBA. I mean, that's the guy who brings the whole team together and keeps it running.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot's on the players to do that, but like it's and then two, I can't imagine one to join a franchise who was losing like the Kings were, um, have coaching turnover consistently. I mean, who
Hmm.
was coaching when he got there? Was it Luke Walton?
Um,
Or was it Dave Yeager?
when
I
De'Aaron
can't even
Fox went to the
remember.
Kings, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, they've had so many in the
hmm.
time there. I think he's had 4 or 5 coaches in his
Yeah.
7 years there.
And that's why
And I
people went
mean,
so crazy about it, myself included, because I'm like, this is the motherfucker that got y'all to the playoffs after 15 years, and y'all
exactly.
fired him. Like, that's
And
almost
you
as
get
bad as the
rid of
Luka
him.
trade.
On top of that, like, you have to wonder as De'Aaron Fox, you're told that you're your team's franchise player, and he asks, "Hey, well, go get me some players to help me." And yeah,
Hmm.
they took Marvin Bagley. They tried with that, didn't work. But then you look at the other guys they drafted. They drafted Tyrese Halliburton, Davion Mitchell. both guys that play his position.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it felt like they were going out and drafting his replacement, and then they finally traded Halliburton for Sabonis, and then drafted Keegan Murray, which, were two good moves with guys that fit around Fox. And then they go draft another guard in Devin Carter this summer and then fire the coach that he likes.
Mm-hmm.
How is he supposed to take that?
That's why I said that's another reason I said the DeMar trade was crazy, because I was like, the amount of stuff you have to give up to get DeMar, and then you're trying to inject more All-Star power into it. I was like, the Kings need to have a solid piece in each position, but instead you're saying like, we have DeMar, we have De'Aaron Fox, we're good, and it's like, no, you need a decent person in each spot, and that's what the Kings had when they had Mike Brown. Was because again I compare it to the Spurs, and I was gonna segue that into, because you had mentioned like the coaches, like the hypocrisy of like, oh, they don't do anything but they're also the scapegoat. I have a whole like 30-minute or something video about that, and that was back when that was all the way back when Mike Budenholzer got fired, I think.
Mhm.
And I was talking about I talked about, I think the title of it is like how the coaches became NBA scapegoats or whatever. And I talk about that exact hypocrisy in there, and I talked about how like lay GM, lay coach will never work because of that exact thing. Like somebody needs to keep the all-star power in check. And then and a perfect example of that was how the remind me of his name. Who's the Cavs coach that they have now? Starts with a K, I think.
Oh, the
It's like something like Alderson or something. I forget his fucking name. Uh,
yeah, it's Kenny Atkinson. He used to
Kenny
coach the Nets.
Atkinson. That's what it is. I was like, I know it starts with an A and it ends in Son.
Yeah,
It's Atkinson.
that was
He
so
was
me. I
on the
was thinking like
Nets, and then
Adamson for some reason.
yeah, he was on the Nets as the coach, and whenever KD went to the Nets, it was that exact thing. Like Atkinson was like, "All right, I have a plan for the Nets. I'm gonna build this team chemistry. I'm gonna create an actual like team atmosphere and community on the Nets." And KD was like, "Oh, fuck all that, man. We got Harden, we got Kyrie, we got me. We don't
Come
need
on,
you. Let's get
Steve
Steve
Nash.
Nash." And then, but the funny thing is that Atkinson was on the Nets whenever they had Jared Allen and everybody. So whenever he went to the Cavs, Jared Allen already had an idea of what Atkinson was going to do. And then
Exactly.
I've been on this hill for so long, and I've died on this hill multiple times, and everybody called me wrong, and I'm finally getting my vindication. And you agreed to it a while back whenever again I was still in college. It was like one of the first episodes we had together. This is all the way back in like 2020, 2021. I was like, the Cavs are building the Spurs. And like, again, just like the Kings, I was like, the Cavs are building the Spurs and it's going to be great. And everybody was like,
As soon
what
as
the
they
hell are you
drafted
talking
Mobley,
about?
I was like, man.
Yeah. And then Kenny Atkinson came in, and I literally have two videos coming out, which I didn't even plan it to be this way, but now that it is gonna be this way, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. So I have a video planned to come out about the Cavs and why they're doing so well, and then I have another video coming out about Pop's legacy, and I was like, well, now people can watch those videos back to back and see how much they compare. About
Mhm.
the Cavs are winning because they're a team and they're building community, and that is what Kenny Atkinson is doing. And again, it reminds me so much reminiscent of the 2014 Spurs. And I know I've keep it seems like I keep throwing out that term so much because I did it with the Kings and now I'm doing it again with the Cavs. And like I'm like, oh, this team reminds me of the 2014 Spurs. But it's like, no, it's mainly the Kings with Mike Brown and now the Cavs with Kenny Atkinson.
Mhm.
But it's just because I know when we brought up that topic like a long time ago, you had said like Darius Garland is a mix of Kyrie and Tony Parker, is what you had said.
Yeah,
Um,
he's the closest thing I've seen to Tony Parker in
mm-hmm,
this modern league. He's a better shooter than Tony Parker for sure.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, just the way he plays is so similar.
yeah. So I love the Cavs. I people are gonna say like I'm a bandwagon if I cheer for them this year, But it's like, again, I've been on this hill since like 2020, ever since they got Evan Mobley, and everybody like hated
I
me for
love
it because
Mobley, man.
they were like the Cavs lost the play in. What do you mean they're the new Spurs? And I was like, now they finally have a new coach, and I'm like, I told y'all, I've been telling y'all for 4 years.
What I admire about them, I mean, they went and traded for Donovan Mitchell because they knew he would fit what they were envisioning for the team.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, "Oh, that's stupid." It turned out fine. They did not trade Darius Garland. That was just baffling to me. People being like, "Oh, Garland sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to you need to trade him, or if you're another team, you don't need him." I'm like, dude, he lost like 15 pounds because he had jaw surgery,
Yeah, I
had to
was
have his
like, he's
mouth wired
injured,
shut,
and
and playing through that. Of course, he had a rough season. Now he's right back to All Star form, and then Evan Mobley, they're talking about, oh, he just is slow developing. He's not ever going to be anything, and he's finally gotten enough experience where it's coming around. Jared
mm-hmm.
Allen fits seamlessly, and then they just made a trade too. They traded for DeAndre Hunter
Mm-hmm.
to kind of round out that and get them another big wing that can help them out there. And like their bench is good too. They got Dean Wade off the bench, who was like a dark horse pick out of Kansas State. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Karis LeVert was solid. They got rid of him. They still got Isaac Okoro over there. Like they're just very well built. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one thing about the Cavs that you can point out to other teams is they stay the course. They do not overreact. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's another big thing along with the coaching thing that drives me nuts is a team loses and people are, oh, this guy had a bad game. We need to trade him.
Yeah.
No, they stay the course because they believe in what they have. And if you give it a year or so and one guy is consistently not doing well, sure, you can look at
Mm-hmm.
dealing him. But I mean, they believed in what they had. Now they're, the best, one of the best, if not the best team in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. So I talked a little bit about that in so I have like another sort of podcast, if you will, on this channel that I started. Um CJ Hoop Talks, who has been on the channel, is actually the one that reached out to me to start it. So I won't say that I started it. He technically is the one that started, but I'm part of it. I meant to say. Um it's sort of short form podcast. The idea of it is that we give our takes in 5 minutes or less, and so it's called Shot Clock Talks. Just like the shot clock has 24 seconds, you have to get your take in the time frame. But in anyway, plug for that show aside. My point is, I talked on that show separate from the Nathan Burnett show about going back kind of to the Mike Brown trade. I had said that exact thing about how people overreact way too fast, because I talked about how the Mike Brown firing was crazy. Um, and then immediately after that episode came out, they went on like a crazy win streak, and we got like a bunch of like hate comments that were like, "Oh, y'all are so stupid. The Kings made the right decision because now they're winning 7 games." And so I came on the next episode and I rebutted all that, and I was like, NBA fans, I love y'all, but y'all play into the narrative that the media feeds y'all way too easily. I was like, y'all overreact. As soon as a team loses 5 games in a row, they're the worst team in the league. As soon as a team wins 5 games in a row, they're the best team in the league. I was like, y'all buy in way too quickly. And it's the exact thing you said, where it's like a player will like lose a game and they're like, oh, trade him, put him on the trading block. Um, and yeah, man, it's crazy the way like because that even happened with another guest that I used to collab with. I don't collab with anymore. Not to start YouTube beef and drama, but let's just say I don't collab with them anymore. Um, and I won't even say their name in case it does start drama. But some of y'all YouTube detectives out there can go and find the episode I'm referring to. We were talking about trade deadlines and stuff for last year and trade rumors and stuff. And they brought up the Cavs and they were like, all right, guys, it's time. Something's got to give. We got to either trade Donovan Mitchell, trade Garland, or trade Mobley. And I was the only person. This was a large podcast because the people I was guesting with, they had their own podcast of like 4 different people. So there was
Mhm.
6 of us in the call. And I was the only person out of those 6 that was saying like, "No, I don't feel like we need to get rid of anybody." And their response to me was, "It's already we've because I had said what I had said, I think word for word was like, I just want to give them one more shot. Like I feel I really feel like this Cavs team could work." And their response to me was like, they've already had too many chances. Garland, Donovan Mitchell, or Mobley has to
Yeah.
go. And again, that to me that just plays into what you said of like people react way too strongly, too fast. And that again, out of 6 people, I was the only person that was like, just give them one more year, and then we have this year and they go crazy. And so I just want to be like,
Mhm.
I I called it. I told y'all just one more chance, and now they're on track to be like, I think it was like 72-10, like right below the Warriors record. So
Yeah, it's level-headedness is a big virtue in
mm,
sports, and I don't know. I see a lot of people on Twitter. God, so many teams are run by incompetent GMs, and unless you're the Mavericks, it's hard for me to to agree with that. Because I'm like, GMs do a lot, man, and it's
mm-hmm.
I get here's my last rant on it, and then we can move on. But
People need to go and rewatch Moneyball to see what GMs have to deal with.
well, and that does a good job of showing it. Is you know this isn't everyone likes to say the NBA is a business. No, it's not. I've done a whole presentation on this. You can say it's the same thing as the government. It's a business. No, it's not. It does not work like a business. It does not function like a business. There's different objectives. And in the NBA, when your asset and your product is people, you cannot run it like you're running a convenience store or something like that. If something's not selling, just get it off the shelf. That's not how it works. There are nuances and there's context to each thing. There's different things that affect each player. And
Mm-hmm.
then on top of that, each of those players is getting a guaranteed amount of money. So, if you move them, you have to do certain things to match that money. There's different values on contracts, different unspoken deals. And then now there's this new collective bargaining agreement that really restricts what you're able to do spending wise and all that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's an incredible amount to, I guess, figure out and then act upon once the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that think it's just as simple as, oh, you cut ties. First of all, we've seen GMs do that. Go look at the Cavs when LeBron was there. I mean, year after, they had like the one year where they traded away like 6 or 7 guys, and yeah, they still made it because LeBron was on the team playing out of his mind, but they didn't really do anything better or worse. They swapped guys, and making a trade for the sake of making a trade is just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You are uprooting people from where they are, you're sending them to another place, and more importantly for your team, you're bringing in somebody, and that somebody's going to have expectations on them. And when there is people involved and jobs and different factors involved, it is completely different than just running your own little business. And it's not the NBA trade machine. You can't just throw picks in there and get the cool result on the screen. Those picks become a person.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it with the Nets. They threw a bunch of picks at stuff, and the Celtics are what they are today because the Nets got careless with what those picks would turn into.
Mm-hmm.
And the Spurs with Atlanta, they're going through that now because Atlanta got excited and gave up too much for a guy that they thought could do more because of the talk around them, and because of what the owner wanted. And the Suns, they traded for all these big names after going for the finals because their owner wants the attraction, and it is not that. So that's my rant. GMs have a very hard job, and aside from me criticizing Nico Harrison because I thought that was just a bonkers move,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's rough out there, and I can't imagine even a team like the Bulls where they've got assets they can't get stuff for, a team that's not good and short on options to rebuild. I can't imagine what it's like having to do something like that. It's tough. So it is not the party and fun that people seem to think it is. It is a job.
Yeah. Um, I was originally gonna talk about like all-star stuff in the Wizards trade, but we've already been talking for a while. And just for reference, guys, Swiss Seal is an hour ahead of me. It's almost 9:30 here. It's almost 10:30 over there. So I'm gonna close it off with the Butler trade, and we can talk a little bit about that. And then
Oh
that'll
yeah.
be the last thing. I know people may be excited for more trade talk, like again Dennis Schroeder and joking about how the Jazz have their piece in every pie and stuff like that. But we'll end it off with the last big trade, which is the Butler trade. But that's how you know it's gonna be a good episode when Swiss Seal's on, man. Every episode that me and Swiss, usually my episodes are like 45 minutes to an hour. Whenever me and Swiss Seal on, man, we're so passionate about this stuff. We end up going for 90 minutes to 2 hours. So it's like a double episode for you guys.
Oh, I
So
feel bad. I just start going off on tangents.
no, it's all good, man. I love it because it's content, you know. Like you, Swiss Seal has a channel, guys. Y'all need to go check him out. I mean, when again, me and
Hasn't
him are
posted
passionate
in years.
about this. We end up going for hours. Um, but to go into the Jimmy Butler trade, not to immediately diminish what you just said about GMs having a hard job, but let's talk about how the Warriors gave up way too much for Butler. Um,
Yeah. Now that in terms of the hard job, the heat, man. How hard is it to trade a guy who doesn't want to be there, but
mhm.
also doesn't want to sign an extension with anyone? And somehow they pulled it off.
Yeah. Did you see the whole thing about Pat Riley started crying about like how he wanted to keep Jimmy Butler finally? And it's like you had all these opportunities to keep him, and you kept burning bridges, and now when he's finally leaving, you want to try and pull the crying card. And Jimmy
Right.
Butler had a perfectly reasonable reaction to that where he said he called Pat Riley unhinged and crazy and mentally unstable and stuff. And I was like, that's perfectly justified because again, you burnt all these bridges and then you decide to pull the crying card. Like you
It's
could have
graduation goggles.
yeah.
You ever heard that expression?
No, but is it like drunk
But like,
goggles but something
well, it's like when
else?
you go, yeah, kind of. Well, like when you go to high school or college and like you're just so ready to be done with it, but then on graduation night you realize it's the last time you're ever really going to see those people and
Mhm.
be in this environment, and you're like, wow, this was wonderful. This wasn't bad at all. Like that's exactly what Pat Riley did.
Mhm.
It's like, wait, actually, hold on. The guy that got us to the finals for the first time in years, we're sending him away. That's sad.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I
like,
I
good
just
God,
love how
man.
Butler handled the situation because like I I just released a video and again it was one of those things just like I said about the Cavs and the pop thing where I was like I didn't plan it this way initially but maybe I'm smarter than I think where I knew all the Jimmy Butler drama was like going crazy and I was like I should make a video about Jimmy Butler and I upload every Thursday and then I looked and I was like, wait a minute. My upload schedule aligns perfectly to where my Jimmy Butler video releases on the trade deadline. I was like, I didn't even plan that, but that's amazing. And so I talked in that Jimmy Butler video about how Jimmy has like the reputation of being like having snarkiness and like
Yeah,
playing
like a diva, kind of.
yeah, but also like he plays like 4D chess because
Mhm.
with the whole I talked about something that wasn't really very public about the whole Timberwolves drama. Whenever he played the whenever he did the whole practice stuff and he went crazy
Yeah,
and he was like you know, he acted bad on purpose. And then he came out to the media because he had before that he was talking about how the Timberwolves are like way too soft of a franchise and stuff like that.
yeah,
So then he went and had a crazy practice, and in the interviews that came out afterwards about that practice, he had said like, "No, I was aware I was acting like a dick, but the problem was that I was acting like a dick and nobody on the team was calling me out." He's
yeah,
like,
they
"I
weren't
was
doing
proving
anything
the
about it.
yeah, he was like, I'm proving the fact that the team's soft because I can go in there and do that and nobody's gonna stop me." Like, it wasn't the fact of like, yeah, he was obviously making a point that he wanted to be paid, But more so than the fact, it's like you got to start peeling back the onion layers about he was like, I went in there and did that and no one stopped me. And that
Mm-hmm.
is the bigger problem of the Timberwolves. And so to go along with that, I like how Jimmy with the Heat was just getting small jabs in. And I was like, that's perfectly Jimmy Butler style because he went to, I'm sure you've seen it, he went to his coffee shop and he was
Yeah.
he was
Oh
like he
yeah.
was
Oh,
like,
I
see,
don't have
I
any
gave
money
you
on
a
my card.
compliment. That's what a boss does. And I was like, ah, classic Jimmy. But anyway, for like the actual, aside from Jimmy Butler's drama and everything, for the actual trade itself, I do feel like the Warriors really gave up too much because it goes back to the same thing we said about the Mavs where like AD is what do we say? AD is like 30, what do we say, 34,
31.
31.
31.
Um sorry, it's hard to keep track of every player's ages, but I know all three of them are in their
No, I don't
30s.
believe me. I know, man.
But they were talking about Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler I know is going to be 35 because I talked about that in my video. And then you have Steph, which is getting old, and um then you have Draymond obviously, and the Warriors even gave away picks for him as well. So I was like, you're trading away your future for a player you're only going to have like 2 to 3 more years with, along with
Yeah.
your other core of Draymond and Curry. You really should have kept picks so that you can make sure you actually have a team after Curry
Right.
retires. And then to on top of that, I saw people talking about how they traded Wiggins, and Wiggins has such a similar play style to Butler anyway. And people said they traded. I saw somebody joking like, "Yeah, they traded Wiggins for older Wiggins," and I
Yeah.
was like,
Well, and the thing is to see the Warriors to me screwed up in a couple ways. Yeah, I know they won that last title and that was awesome for them, but I think the biggest problem they had is they thought once Steph and Clay both got injured that year, they were like, "Oh, hey, we can tank it out while these guys are all hurt. Add some top talent from top picks and then we can still win while they develop and then we're set
mm-hmm,
up for our future after Steph too."
mm-hmm,
And I just it does not work like that a lot of the times. It happens every now and then, like the Spurs with Kawhi Leonard, but no one was expecting Kawhi to be what he became. I mean, he was drafted as the new answer at small forward to be a 3-and-D guy
mm-hmm,
and just evolved into something incredible. But like, I mean, then they use the pick on a questionable guy like Wiseman, who I got flamed in that draft because I said I did not like him as a top 3 pick. I
mm-hmm,
said that the Warriors should have taken LaMelo Ball,
mm-hmm.
and and I'm so mad because I got told that I had no idea what I was talking about because Wiseman just felt like another Hassan Whiteside to me
Mm-hmm.
without as much polish, and I was so right.
Yeah.
but um,
I don't
but
worry, dude. I had the same conversation. Like when I first started the podcast, we talked about LaMelo versus who was it? LaMelo versus Anthony Edwards or who was it? My podcast host was a Rockets fan. So we were talking about I
oh
think it
yeah,
was Jason Tate um versus LaMelo and like all this other stuff. And I was like, LaMelo's gonna win Rookie of the Year. And my co-host was like, LaMelo only got popular because of a dunk. He's not that good, and like all that. And like me and him are still really good friends. I had him on for an episode a while, like a few episodes back. But I still give him crap about that. I was like, "You remember how you hated on LaMelo?" And he's like, "Yes, you bring it up every time we talk to each other." And I'm like, "Well, it's because I was right."
well, and that's like then so they drafted Wiseman over a guy like Lamelo or
Mhm.
even Scotty Barnes could have been amazing, and then the next year they took Kaminga, who yeah was like a high rated prospect, but another one of these incredibly raw guys that needs a ton of work. And if you look back, like I thought for sure the Warriors were going to take Wagner. I was like, that
Mhm.
just feels like their kind of guy, and they didn't.
Mhm.
But then they're stuck with all these guys who are too young to be effective on these teams in the playoffs. So they finally trade a couple away and all that. And now you didn't maximize the years that you had where Steph was going crazy and Draymond's still one of the top defenders in the league, and Clay is still respectable. And now you lose Clay to a different
Mm-hmm.
team because you can't afford to pay him to stick around for what his production is. And I don't know. I just feel like they kind of what you said. They gave up a bunch, and they're just grasping at straws,
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep Steph Curry from leaving, and they want him to retire there. But yeah, I wonder because I feel like not going all in while he was still an MVP candidate every year is that people are going to look back and say like, damn, could we have won like an extra title or two in there?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and who knows? Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. But yeah, I, I wonder too. Like Jimmy Butler, he's not. I said the word diva earlier. I don't think I really believe that because I think he's just one of those people like he's come from nothing but hard work and nothing has
Yeah,
ever
man.
been expected for him. And he's just shot through everything. So he's got that chip on his shoulder always.
Yeah.
And Draymond Green's almost the exact same way, except he's also a diva on top of that. And Jimmy's not really a diva. He's more just a no nonsense guy. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, what happens when those two butt heads?
Yeah,
Like,
everybody was joking about that where it's like Curry shooting threes in the corner. Meanwhile, I don't know if you've been like into Marvel Rivals like at all, but I saw
oh yeah,
somebody posted a gif of the Hulk versus versus the Thing, and it said Draymond and Jimmy Butler while Curry's shooting threes in the corner or something like that. And like those
yeah.
memes have
That's
been
gonna be like the
crazy.
next big earthquake in
Yeah.
California when those two. I'm
Mhm.
just like, how is this fit gonna work?
Mhm.
And what's gonna happen when Steph has a rough game? And Steph's always been kind of the playful personality on that team. And
Mhm.
how's Jimmy gonna feel about that kind of stuff
Yeah.
and
I'm
all
glad you
that? But
agree with that perspective though, because like I even I knew that my Jimmy Butler take was gonna be taken as a hot take because for whatever reason so many people were siding with Pat Riley on the whole Heat drama. And so I made my whole video basically about defending Jimmy Butler. And again, the whole point of that video was like so many people are against Jimmy Butler because he's seen as a drama maker, but all of his drama has been justified. And that was the entire purpose of that video. And I even made the
yeah,
title a little clickbaity where I said, Jimmy Butler, narcissistic egomaniac or unappreciated talent. Uh,
yeah, and like I'll preface by saying I don't think Jimmy is completely blameless. Like I
mm,
think there's some things like well, like his videos. I'm like, come on, man, you're pouring salt in the wound, and you know
yeah,
what you're doing. But
yeah,
I don't think they're bad. I think they're funny. But I mean, in Chicago, I don't recall any drama with him in Chicago. I just recall them not wanting to pay him and then trading him on draft night
he
for
hated Hoiberg. That was the big thing because again, like you said, no
yeah, they got rid
nonsense.
of Tibbs.
Yeah, like you said, no nonsense. He felt Hoiberg didn't care and was like taking too much of like a back seat and being like, "Oh yeah, I'll just gather the coaching paychecks while the team figures it out." And Jimmy Butler was like, "No, you're a coach. How about you, I don't know, maybe coach us?" And so
Yeah,
yeah, that was his big problem. And then he went to Timberwolves and his whole deal with the Timberwolves was like, I'm not getting paid enough. And again, I I dissect each problem he had with each team where I was like, at first glance, everybody's like, oh well, Jimmy Butler's selfish. He didn't want to take this deal. And I was like, but Jimmy Butler was the whole reason Jimmy Butler was brought into the Timberwolves was so that he could help develop
yeah, save them.
Wiggins and Cat, and then they were gonna pay Wiggins and Cat double what they were gonna pay
Yeah,
Butler.
what they're going to pay him.
And Butler was like, "You
And
wouldn't even have these players if it wasn't for without me, and now you're gonna pay them this much." It's like I'm the one
exactly.
who made them. And then with
If I
76ers,
remember
it was the same thing with
correctly,
Ben Simmons. So,
I think Cat came out and talked about like, yeah, like basically said something like Jimmy was right. He was like, yeah,
mhm,
in like our younger days, me and Wiggs, like we'd be up night playing late at night playing video games the night before a game, and he was like, and that irritated the hell out of him. Like,
mhm,
get a good night's sleep. We have work tomorrow. That kind of deal. And
yeah,
and then like I'm here trying to teach these people how to be professional, and then you told me I'm so valuable for doing that, then you're gonna lowball me and give them all the money when I'm the one putting in the work.
Yeah. And
And I
people
kind of felt
forget
like he
he
felt
was
the same
like
way in Philly.
and people forget that he was like homeless for so long too. Like that's why he has that mindset is cuz like he's like, don't just accept blind handouts or don't feel like you can take things for granted. Work for what you have. Like, he had to start from like the bottom and build himself up. Like that's why he transferred to Marquette cuz he was like I
Where
need
he went to
somewhere that
junior
I can
college.
yeah. He transferred to Marquette cuz he felt like he would have a better shot there. And then like he had to go through like the homelessness and like all that. He like knows that you have to work for what you have, and I feel like that really plays into that where he's like, yo, you're in the NBA, act like you're in the NBA, like don't take all this for granted, work for what you're being paid for. Don't just be like, yeah, I made it, I'm a professional ball player, like what's done is done. It's like, I mean, we saw with Cat, like he got traded to the Knicks. I feel like Jimmy Butler had that mentality of like, you got to work for the team that you're on. Otherwise, you're going to be waived. You're going to be traded the next day. Like, don't take it for granted and do what you're paid to do and go out and win, you know?
Yeah, that's I mean Philly too. It was just kind of same thing. They brought him in there to win, and it was, hey, we're gonna prioritize these guys ahead of you, even though you were clearly arguably our best player in the playoffs.
Mm
That kind of thing, and then goes to Miami, drags them, quite literally drags them to a finals,
hmm.
and I think the thing that speaks most about Jimmy is that there's guys out there that are problems on teams, but Jimmy, all of his teammates have never had anything negative to say about him. Even for guys to go back and say like, "Yeah, I was wrong. I was screwing around," and he was upset about that. I was right. Like that's your big tell.
Mm
Because nobody likes a true diva.
hmm. Mm hmm. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Heat side of the trade, and then we'll wrap up. So I was just gonna ask like what you thought of like Wiggins replacing Jimmy, because again, like people were saying, he's a younger version of Jimmy. So it's like, yeah, maybe a similar play style, but he's not gonna bring in the same mentality, the same veteranness, and everything. And then once we talk about that, we'll close out the episode because I know we've been going on for a while, and I know you probably want to go to bed, and I got other stuff I got to do as well. So it's like, all that good stuff.
That works with me, man.
um. So yeah, did you have like any thoughts of like Wiggins on the Heat, like what he's gonna
He
how
can't
he'll perform
decide
and.
about that one. Um, I've thought about that, and I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love Wiggins. Seems like a good guy. I would love nothing more for him to have a little bit of a resurgence and get back to what he was doing in that All Star season a couple years ago. Now, granted, yes, it was a weak All Star field for small forwards that year, but still, he had a really solid season, and I was happy for him because all the hype coming out of college, and I felt like he never really lived up to that. I don't know with the Heat, man. Maybe it works really well with him next to Tyler Hero because Hero's balling out this season, and
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Ware looks really good, and Bam Adebayo is a good player. So maybe it fits, and since he's not as ball dominant as Jimmy is at times, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's when I'm really going to have to watch them play first because I feel like it can either go one way or another, and I just don't know. And I think the Heat are kind of feeling that way too. It's
Mm-hmm.
a risk, and we're seeing what happens. But I think they're just determined to move on from Jimmy, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Um, I don't have too much to say about Wiggins on the Heat. It was more so Jimmy on the Warriors, which you talked about. Again, I wonder who's going to be the leader on that team besides Bam Adebayo because again, like Jimmy was the one that really carried them and was the leader, and again with his no nonsenseness, like really was like the leadership and like here's what we need to do. And now they have Wiggins who
Hmm.
isn't even if he plays similar isn't gonna bring in that So it's like, I wonder if Bam will pick up the torch or if they'll have to find another leader or what the case may be. But yeah. But I'll go ahead and wrap up the episode. I know we've been going for a while, but again, that just goes to show how good me and Swiss Seal are together. So I hope you had fun, Swiss Seal. I hope I wasn't keeping you away from stuff for too long after we went for so long. But yeah, I had fun, man. I think this will be a really good episode. Again, just to finish off the episode announcements, Kickstarter, all that in the description. Go support the indie game. Merch store should be out sometime soon. I can't make any promises. Hopefully it'll be at least by like maybe the summer if I have like all the paperwork and designs ready. But we'll see. Can't make any promises on that, but you can at least go to the website. But again, there's nothing on the website right now. But at least that'll get y'all excited for what's to come. But yeah, go check all that out. Like, subscribe, share the video around, all that cliche YouTuber stuff. 25 for 25. And Swiss Seal, you have anything else you want to add to end things off, or?
No, I'm just waiting for the merch to drop.
Nice, man. I'll definitely see if I could send like you and Clan like some stuff.
No, you don't need to send me anything. Let me buy something, for God's sake.
Okay, fair enough.
I
But
don't need
yeah,
a handout. I want to support you.
fair enough, man. I appreciate it. I mean, I wear Clans merch on here all the time, so I mean, yeah.
Don't tell him that. He'll get a big head.
All right, Nathan Burnett, episode 74. Welcome to the world of Spirits of Jinminju. In this world, the legendary Jinminju tree grows fruit that grants gifts and supernatural talents to those that eat from it. Over the generations, as the power has been passed down, these gifts have diversified and are now presented through the form of spirit animals. Each spirit brings its own personality and is typically aligned with the person's personality and archetype. For instance, there is Bee with the obvious worker bee spirit, hardworking with extracurriculars and pollinating positivity to the world. There's Carmen, a chameleon spirit, with her tendency to want to hide her true colors, as well as a rare birth gene that causes her hair to change color based on her emotions. Naima, who has the strength but also the calmness and tranquility of an elephant, winning a Letterman jacket in practically every sport offered. There are several more to choose from, such as Topaz, the silly orange cat spirit, and his best friend Ollie, the otter spirit. There's Venus, the egotistical peacock, Kenneth, the intelligent octopus, and more. Each person with a spirit like this is granted entry to the world-renowned school, West Grove Academy, in order to hone their spirits and meet people just like them. However, Toft, our protagonist, finds himself amongst the members of the school despite not having unlocked his spirit yet, earning him the moniker of Jellyfish, a slang term for the spiritless, as jellyfish have no nervous system and therefore no defining traits or personality to be assigned to. While at the school, mysterious occurrences unsettle the academy. The once amazing painter Leo can suddenly only draw stick figures. The beautiful Venus starts to lose her hair. And Naima, the ultimate strength, starts to lose her ability to do her daily workout routine. This causes an investigation amongst the group about what's really happening at the school. In the game, the player will solve puzzles to uncover the secrets of the academy, such as ciphers, codes, riddles, and more, and also engage in what we call the dialogue battle system. In the game, it's important to get to know each character, as throughout the game, you will have to make the right dialogue choices that connect to a person's moral compass in order to convince them to calm down, help you, or some other form of persuasion. This is referred to as the choice phase, where the spirit bar will increase or decrease based on dialogue choices. Having the bar below or above a certain point will determine a win or loss in battle based on your ability to persuade them. In between making these choices, the player will also have to navigate the projectile phase, which occurs here in this box. Projectiles will launch at the player, in which they will have to navigate around them and dodge them to survive the wave. Hitting a projectile will cause the health bar to decrease, which upon hitting 0 will also result in a loss. This is very similar to the Undertale bullet hell combat. These phases will alternate such that the player will dodge a wave in the projectile phase before they are able to make a dialogue option in the choice phase. These dialogue choices will then launch another projectile phase with a harder or easier difficulty depending on the level of correctness of that choice. These phases will cycle until the dialogue battle is complete, and then the story continues. So, are you up for the challenge? Join Toft and his friends as they unravel the mysteries of West Grove Academy and unlock their spirits of Jinmenju. Can you help them restore the balance and discover the secret that lies within the school? Support us on Kickstarter to bring Spirits of Jinmenju to life. Backers can receive amazing rewards such as a Steam key to the game upon its release, exclusive signed merchandise, plushies of the characters, or even getting themselves included inside the game as an Easter egg. For more details, go to the link below.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.